Now, according to One America's Jack Posobiec, China could be the biggest geopolitical threat to America. Take a look.
All right, we're sitting down here with former CIA officer Brad Johnson. Let's talk about something that I would call China's secret war with the United States. You know, folks in the mainstream media and Democrat Party want to talk all about Russia, Russia, Russia all day long, when really the country that's waging a secret war behind the scenes against the U.S. is China.
I couldn't agree more, and they've been very effective in doing it. If you look just going back a very short period ago in history, about a year ago, a little more, the Chinese hacked the OPM website, the Office of Personnel Management. That is the HR of the United States government, and it houses all of the information, reams for each individual on all of their personal information.
That database would include who had a security clearance and what their position was.
Exactly right. In fact, to this day, they're still very active using that and are targeting, at least I can guarantee you, all of the retired CIA people. I don't know if that extends to other retired federal people, and I believe also active duty CIA people.
So how are they targeting former CIA?
They're making phone calls all of the time. I've received multiple of these phone calls, and individual calls speaking in Chinese, but what they're reporting, people are telling me, is that what the Chinese are saying is that there's a package waiting for you, come to the Chinese embassy to pick it up. So these are hitting everybody. All of my friends that I know that are out of the agency now.
So they're trying to find who was working in China because they would be able to speak Chinese.
They'd understand the message, yes. So I think it's essentially, you have to look at it as a worldwide effort by the Chinese to pitch U.S. intelligence officers.
Now that's what China's doing in the U.S. What about back in China? What have they done there?
Well, and certainly it's received a lot of publicity recently. The Chinese have absolutely just cleaned up, and there were reports of up to 30 individuals that were working for the CIA reporting on China that were wrapped up and executed.
These would be clandestine sources.
Correct. Clandestine sources, spies, if you will, spies for the U.S. government who've been caught by the Chinese and then executed. The other thing that happened is that there was information that has been publicly released that communications, the clandestine communications, which was a internet-based form of communications that had been used elsewhere, was also blown by the Chinese. Two things on that. One, how did the Chinese even know to look there? So somebody gave them that information. And two, they then subsequently did a massive investigation of this and a damage assessment to see if that system of communications were blown, what the Chinese would have learned out of it. Now, the third area that has not been looked at and is very interesting right now is the Dianne Feinstein case, where she had this driver that worked for her for 20 years. Now, that's been kind of downplayed as not being significant.
And yet all the mainstream media and the Democrats want to talk about is Russia.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's other questions that need to be made out there. And again, these damage assessments need to be run. The DNC hack, for example. Now, Russia hasn't been caught doing all of this stuff and proven to be doing it, but China has, and they're not even being looked at.
They're saying that that initial hack took place right around the same time that China was hacking the OPM database.
Exactly right. So, I mean, it just, your prime player in all of those sorts of things isn't even being looked at. So it's amazing where we kind of find ourselves twisted in politics, infringing on very important national security elements that need to be looked at.
It almost seems like there's an economic incentive to not talk about these things when China does them, but since Russia doesn't have that same type of economic leverage, economic influence, they're cast as a scapegoat.
Absolutely correct. And the amount of money that can be brought to bear and money that can be made by working in Asia and China, and China has a lot of influence on what takes place in Asia, and that influence is growing, not shrinking.
Now, just to wrap up, I'll ask sort of a question regarding what are China's goals in this? We know that Chairman Xi Jinping has now declared himself sort of the leader for life. Where does he see the relationship between us and China going in the next 20 to 25 years?
Well, certainly he's after, I think, unchallenged control of Asia. And he doesn't want the United States or anyone else playing in his backyard. So beyond that also, he wants to become a world stage player and a world power, which, China is certainly, you shouldn't snub them for that end of things. They are certainly both an economic and military power to be considered. Everyone recognizes that the challenges out into the future for the United States are certainly Iran, North Korea, Russia, China, and of course terrorism. So they're one of the big five, if you will, that needs to be looked at and worked towards peaceful solutions with.
Brad Johnson, thank you so much for being with us here today on One America News.
Jack, pleasure to see you again. Thank you.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube, and call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.